Good morning and welcome to Sunday morning at the Marxist Forum. I'm Roger Harris. I'm with the ICSS, the Institute for the Critical Study of Society, which puts on these programs. And we've been putting on these programs for over a decade and a half. And the the ICSS, you can find out more about our programs at our website, and please visit our website to hear about new programs, to see recordings of past programs, and also to make donations because we do have expenses and appreciate you giving us uh, the money to go on with this important work. Um, the Our website is ICSS, the initials ICSS dot Marks, and you can find out about new programs and stuff like that. Today's program is a very special program. It is about what's happening in Venezuela. And as we all know, a week ago, last Friday morning, early Friday morning, early Friday, late Friday morning, early Sunday, late Friday night, early Sunday morning, the United States kidnapped the head of state of Venezuela and his wife, the first combatant. And this program is to clear the fog on some of the propaganda that's been happening in the press. And our speaker, I'm so glad to have with us, is William Camacaro. He is a Venezuelan-American stationed in New York. He's been up almost continuously this last week, either on webinars, going to demonstrations, organizing, being on Zoom calls and stuff like that. So very appreciative of William taking the time to speak to us. And with that said, William will give a short presentation, and then we'll have an open conversation and Q&A as we usually do here in the Sunday mornings at the Marxist Forum. So thank you for coming, and William, thank you for joining us.
Right. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yes, I'm from Venezuela. I'm co-founder of the Venezuelan Solidarity Network, also part of the COHA, a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. Basically, I have been in this country, the United States, more than 30 years already. I came to United States after the Caracazo, when I was a student at the Central University of Venezuela. At that moment, during the Caracazo, more than 3,000 people were killed only in Caracas. People went to the street to protest against the packet of economic measures that were imposed by the government at that time, the neoliberal government at that time, Carlos Andrés Pérez. And basically, people went to the street angry to protest, and they were killed. So I have three cousins that were killed those days. So then I decided to move on and I came to United States in those days. I'm saying this because at that time was very common to suspend the constitutional guarantee. So people were killed and no one paid. And people were killed by hundreds. It was something very common. Every president, whenever there was a little crisis in the country, they were basically suspending the constitutional guarantee. Something that never have happened for the last 25 to 27 years since Chavez came to power. Since Chavez came to power, despite all the craziness that we have been able to see through the entire mainstream media that have been happening in Venezuela, with the support of United States and the support of the right-wing people in Venezuela, despite everything that you have been able to see, protest, people organizing coup d'etat against President Chavez, all the strikes against the oil industry in Venezuela, all kinds of sabotage, electric shutdown an entire country, electricity shutdown an entire country, all kinds of sabotage, the intent to kill President Maduro. So, despite the guarimbas, despite everything that has been happening for the last 27 years, never, never the constitutional guarantee has been suspended. Just one time, take this note, when the coup d'etat removed President Chavez from power, Pedro Carmona, the businessman that became the temporary president of Venezuela when Chavez was kidnapped, he suspended the constitutional guarantee. Have been the only one that have been suspending the constitutional guarantee, and hundreds of people were killed at that moment. So Pedro the Brief. In Venezuela, everybody called him Pedro el Breve, Pedro the Brief, because he was less than, he was for a few hours president of Venezuela. So when I realized that President Maduro was kidnapped, for me it was like a deja vu because I remember when President Chavez was kidnapped. So for me, it's like see the repetition of everything that has been happening for the last that happened 20 years, more than 20 years ago. I remember that people went to the street by hundreds of thousands. Probably you, all of you, have those images in your mind, and people were basically requesting to see President Chavez. And it's the same thing that's happening right now, despite that the mainstream media is saying that President Maduro is a dictatorship, and that President Maduro is unpopular. So basically, thousands and thousands of people, not millions of people, are in the street every single state protesting and requesting to see to get back President Maduro and the First Lady Cilia Flores to get them back to Venezuela. So we need to be clear that it's not a dictatorship and it's not unpopular as they mentioned. You can see, for example, that Donald Trump just a few days ago and Marco Rubio, they said that they don't want, especially Trump, they don't want Maria Corina Machado to run the country because she don't have the capacity and because really she's not popular. So if she's not popular and she won the election with 70% of the vote, as they said that she won the election, why she cannot be the president of Venezuela at this critical moment? They're right. She is not popular. She is uh, uh, people. She is the one that has been requesting invasion, in military intervention from United States, from Israel. She is the one that has been sabotaging the economy and requesting all kind of sanctions against the Venezuelan economy. So, of course, she is not popular in Venezuela. And of course, that if she is appointed as president of Venezuela by United States all his weapons, basically that she will not be able to run the country. And they recognize that. They recognize that she can do it. So what's happening is that they are trying to create a narrative saying that Vice President Delcy Rodriguez is helping them to run the country, that she is collaborating, that she is part of the plan, that she basically will help them to get all the oil and all the natural resources from Venezuela. Uh, that's a narrative coming from the State Department and from Donald Trump, and we should know that that's not the case. We should not be echo of those comments coming from Donald Trump. We know that it's a pathological liar and he's lying. Um, I think that it's also very important to say that thanks to Trump, we know that President Maduro is innocent. We know thanks to the Attorney General office that el cartel de los soles doesn't exist. The only thing that really exists is are the Jeffrey Epstein file. Those things those exist, but the cartel de los soles doesn't exist. And that's something that we need to mention always. They accuse President Maduro of being a narco trafficker. They accuse him of being the chief of a cartel, but now they have to recognize that the cartel of the soles doesn't exist. And something that we know, something that we know that is like that. And so there are a lot of lies. They have been lying about Venezuela and about Maduro for the last since President Chavez passed away. Basically, they have been trying to remove him. They have tried almost everything against him, and because they have been unsuccessful to overthrow him or to kill him, they decide to kidnap him, as well as they kidnap Aristide, as well as they kidnap Alex Saab. So the evil behind this is because they think that they could destroy the Bolivarian Revolution if they remove President Maduro from power, if they remove the First Lady. So the the goal is to crush the Bolivarian Revolution. This has been a very tough blow for the people in Venezuela for the Bolivarian Revolution, but this has not been a fatal blow for the Venezuelan Revolution. People had to understand because I can see some of our friends talking like the Bolivarian Revolution is already in the past. No, it's not in the past. It's there, and people are reorganizing themselves, and people are getting ready to fight back. You have to understand that this extraction, they were able to extract, to kidnap President Maduro because they use high, high technology weapons. Their latest uh, weapons in Venezuela at this point. So they use some kind of weapon that the people didn't know in Venezuela. They use a technology to hijack the entire communicational system to block the system that were civilian the entire Venezuelan airspace, and they were trying to do that for a long time. So they admitted that for a long time they were trying to shut down those equipment, and now they were able to do it. And something that we have to see very clearly is that when Trump and when Marco Rubio was talking about what happened in Venezuela, Trump asked him, why we didn't kidnap, why we didn't get Diosdado Cabello? And then he said, that operation was extremely risky. We had to move very quickly. What that means is that they were expecting anytime soon the response from the army, and they were expecting very soon some kind of response. They didn't want it to stay too long. They had to really move very quickly. So that's why I will guess we don't see too many damages created in the cities. Yes, they dropped several bombs in some key places, but they were unable to destroy the army. The army is still almost, it's the army is almost complete there. So, and that's something very important that people should know. All the airplanes are there, the tanks are there, and a lot of weapons are there. So what this means is that in the next coming day, I think that yes, Venezuela is going to reestablish diplomatic relations with the United States, something that was requesting for a long time President Maduro. And but this means also that Venezuela will get in confrontation, not only diplomatic, but probably also uh, we will see more assassination intent or some kind of military conflict with Venezuela and United States. Yes, I'm opening to question and to talk to all of you guys.
Okay, well, thank you so much, William. And again, thank you. I know it's been an extremely taxing week for you, and I know you've gotten very little sleep and you've been on the streets or on the computer almost continuously. So thank you for joining us. We'll have a Q&A now. Our usual method of doing that is we take hands. So if you folks would like to show their hands, um, go to the bottom of your screen, and then under reaction there is a hand that you could show, and I will be calling people. I'll ask people to ask questions or either make comments. But if you ask a question, try to limit it to one question at a time, if you could, please. And the questioners will have 2 minutes each. Alan will be timing you, and but William will have as much time as he wants to respond. So I see Paulina, his hand is up, and right before call Paulina, I will say that please check our website, icsmarks.org, and for future programs, we have not yet decided on our program for next week, but it will be listed on our website very soon, and you'll get notices for that. So, Polina, if you could ask your question, and thank you for coming, Polina.
Thanks, Roger, and thank you, William. I want to tie this to the struggle for free Palestine. Delcy Rodriguez, I think the following day after the kidnapping of the president and La Primera Combatiente, mentioned that Zionism may be implicated in the attack. I just went online and decided to look up whether Chabad Lubavitch has any presence in Venezuela, and guess what? There are at least 3 centers in Caracas of this cult, Chabad Lubavitch. Can you comment on that, William? Thanks.
Yes, definitely. We have to remember that Maria Corina Machado invited Netanyahu to basically to organize or to send the army to Venezuela to overthrow Nicolás Maduro. She has been collaborating with Israel. We also have to remember that Netanyahu came to United States, and the day after he arrived, United States imposed a bunch of sanctions from the Treasury Department against the Venezuelan government and also Iran. And after that sanctions were passed by the Treasury Department, next day Netanyahu was on a TV show and said that it's extremely important for United States to remove the dictatorship of the dictator from Caracas, Venezuela, because he is basically collaborating with Hezbollah, Hamas, and he's sending terrorists, infiltrating United States with terrorists. And then 2, 3 days later, we have the kidnapping of President Maduro. I really believe that there is a very tight collaboration in what happened in Caracas between Israel and Venezuela. And also he has been saying that he will love to have several businessmen from Israel to invest in Venezuela. So it looks like everybody wants a little piece of cake, no? So that's the situation. And we have to remember that when President Chávez was alive, he was a very, very critical of the Israel state, was very critical of Netanyahu. He also expelled the embassy and terminate the diplomatic relation with Israel. And, and the same thing has been done by President Maduro, have been very critical to, 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 to the Israel government, but also it's not only to be critical into, it's not also only narrative. It's also the fact that Venezuela has been providing not resources for the Palestinian people. That Venezuela also providing help people, young people from Palestine to go up to Venezuela, to be able to go to the university, to giving a scholarship. It's not only the talking, it's also action that Venezuela has been taking in support of the Palestinian people.
Thank you. Next on is Felipa, followed by Laura Wells, please.
Hello, thank you very much, William. My question is about a sort of comparison with what happened in 2002 when Hugo Chavez was kidnapped and returned to his people after incredible demonstrations that took place surrounding the palace, and basically he was returned within 48 hours of being kidnapped in a coup that was by the right-wing opposition. I was wondering, can we expect the same sort of reaction, or I know things. This is 25 years later, so to speak, that things have changed, and just wanted to get your reaction to that.
And yeah, I believe that basically it's different. People in the beginning were in shock. They didn't know what to think of what happened. I think that even in the government, they didn't know what really happened. There was no immediately response from the government. Uh, so so now that everybody has been exposed of what's happening and understanding how everything happened, so we are starting to see very strong statement, and people are taking positions. In terms of the population is angry, upset. This is an action that has been able to put most of the population behind President Maduro and behind the Bolivarian Revolution. But at the same time, is creating cohesion among Latin American countries that were basically criticizing the Bolivarian Revolution, and they see now that they could be a target from United States. And we can see, for example, the government like Boric, Chile, has been condemning what happened in Venezuela, and even a right-wing government has been criticizing what happened in Venezuela, and because the Trump administration is so bellicose, He's basically fighting, Trump is fighting is threatening Mexico, is threatening Cuba, is threatening Colombia, is threatening Brazil, is threatening also Canada. He wants Canada to be a state of United States, is threatening Greenlandia, he's threatening Europe, and bombing Nigeria and Africa. So basically, this administration in less than a year have bombed 7 countries. So he have a record of, Trump have a record, but curiously, he also won the Nobel Peace Prize, no? So, so anyway, in my opinion, everything, in my opinion, at the end, everything is a distraction for what really is going on here. That is a distraction for the most important thing that's happening in the United States that never happened before, something unmanageable. That is the Jeffrey Epstein file. All the scandal that is in that box, and a bunch of picture video, they are being he trying to distract the entire community, the entire American people, and the international community from what really is important. What happened during those years when Jeffrey Epstein was here? Who was implicated? Who was related with all the crime that we're committing? We understand that even they have human sacrifice in that island, and that's something that not too many people have been talking about. So I believe that's the main issue here. He's using all this war to distract the American people from the main problem that we have: the economy, the benefits of the people here that have been caught, but also to hide the Jeffrey Epstein file.
Thank you, William. Okay, up next is Virginia Browning, followed by OK Brown. Oh no, excuse me. Laura Wells is up next, followed by Virginia Browning.
It's great to have you here, William. And the question that I have, actually, it's how to respond to people's questions about the 2024 presidential election, particularly given that, if I remember correctly, Petro of Colombia and Lula of Brazil called for Venezuela to give evidence of having won that election and stuff like that. So I have people, what do I say to that?
Okay, first, we have to take the math to some of them. Petro and Lula. Uh, Petro is, I always say, Petro is like by ideological bipolar. Sometimes it's supporting Venezuela, sometimes it's attacking Maduro, sometimes it's saying, hey, I think that President Maduro should talk to Maria Corina Machado, and sometimes it's defending Venezuela. So he's dancing one side and the other one. Lula is even worse. Lula Lula and Petro were requesting. Remember that they were trying to get Mexico in that same boat. They were requesting the Venezuelan government to see the ballot of the election. But Lula didn't request any ballot to Noboa in Ecuador. He immediately congratulated him. Lula didn't request anything to the dictatorship that is taking place right now in Peru, a government that has been imposed by United States and that removed an indigenous professor, a teacher that was a president, an indigenous peasant that was president of Peru. He was removed, and then they imposed these people as a member of as a president. And then and Lina Buarte, that was the first one, she was removed as a petition request coming from the embassy of United States in Lima, Peru, because she was doing too much business with China. That's the main reason to be removed. And Lula didn't have any problem to have relation with Peru and with Ecuador, but at the same time, Lula blocked Venezuela to be part of the BRIC. And when he organized the meeting of the BRIC in Brasilia, basically in that meeting in Brasilia, he proposed to invite the G20 to be part of the BRIC too. So that's something that people should know. So Lula is now talking and responding very much a man against United States imperialism because he has been attacked by Trump. Because Trump is so stupid that he's attacking his own allies. And so he was attacked by Trump. And of course, Lula has to stand by himself and then pretend that he's defending the entire region. But no, it's not the case. In the case of, I think that it's much better Petro, because Petro at least he have been he doesn't he doesn't want Colombia to be used to attack Venezuela, and his position with Palestine is very good. And those two things are for those two things is that he has been attacked by the Trump administration. But in terms of the election by itself, you can see there is a very nice report by the National Lawyer Guild. There were so many in that report. You will see all the organizations that were observing the election there. I don't have it right now here, but you can see that a huge amount of organizations from Europe, from Africa, from United States that were there observing the elections in Venezuela. What happened in Venezuela was an intent to overthrow the Venezuelan government as they did in Honduras. It's almost the same thing, the same operation. They hijacked the electoral system, and at the end, no, they didn't count the votes. So in the case of Venezuela, fortunately, that didn't happen, but they tried. So I recommend everybody to check the National Lawyer Guild report of the election if you want to get more details, specific details of the electoral process.
Thank you. And then next up is Virginia Browning, followed by OK Bunny. So Virginia, if you could unmute yourself and
Okay, I
ask your
think I'm
question.
am I
Excuse-
unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, so one of my questions was the same one that Laura just asked. We have a somewhat supposedly independent radio station here with a man, Brian Edwards Teekert, who has a lot of power there, and he's very smart. He's supposedly a leftist, but he's going around saying, he had a long interview the other day with a journalist from Venezuela that went to Canada, saying that Maduro was an authoritarian. and that he had jailed and even killed many journalists. I think he might have said hundreds. And then he said, that he stole the election. And this is being repeated on this only independent radio station here. And I don't have much hope for this guy, Brian, changing his whatever he's doing on his own. But I think if enough people really understand the details, maybe we can pressure him not to keep saying these things. So I would like to have answers to these things about the oft repeated accusations of authoritarianism and jailing journalists and censoring people. Thanks.
Yes, well, let me tell you this. To accuse Maduro to be authoritarian, a dictatorship, or our dictator is ridiculous. It's ridiculous because they don't know anything about the electoral process in Venezuela, and they don't know also anything about how people have been able to be integrated into the political system, into the political apparatus of the country. People probably don't know that years ago, before the Bolivarian Revolution, there was very difficult for a huge amount of people, especially for people that were coming uh, the disadvantaged community. For them, were very difficult to get ID, and without ID, you didn't have the possibility to vote. So this is something very easy right now. Everybody have had the right to get his ID, and it's something that you can get it in in minutes. So that's one thing. People, there were not enough places to vote in Venezuela. So you have to vote in certain places in Caracas, but now there are places to vote almost everywhere. If you don't vote, it's because you don't want. But there are places to vote in the entire city and the poorest neighborhood. In the past was not like that. You have a lot of places to vote and most of the middle class areas and some poor areas where they knew that they were able to win. That has changed completely. Also, the integration of the indigenous community to the electoral system, the fact that they are part of the National Assembly. So if that's part of the dictator guy, that's part of the autocratic government that allow indigenous people to vote and to be minister for the first time in the Bolivarian Revolution. We have been able to get a bunch of ministers that are coming from the indigenous communities. The authoritarian government have been able to open radio stations where people basically speak in their own languages and the native language, and they have been promoting their languages and their communities so people could be talking in their own language, indigenous language in their communities. So there are a bunch of programs that help people to advance in the integration to the political apparatus of the government and to participate and to be able to get in positions of decision-making positions. So it's ridiculous to think that Maduro is a dictator of autocratic man. The entire process of Venezuela is a process of integration that is trying to include everybody, every single Venezuelan to the political apparatus. And you have to see just that, for example, even they have now a number of women that have to be in the Congress. They have included handicapped people that have to be part of the Congress. They have all of the spectrum of Venezuelan people are represented in the National Assembly. So it's not like that in United States. You don't see indigenous people as a senator in United States, or you don't see, for example, a handicapped person for law having the right to compete and to be part of the Senate of the Congress of the United States. It's ridiculous.
Thank you. And William, if I could add from a North American perspective that, there aren't free and fair elections in Venezuela, but the reason for that is not because of the Venezuelans, it's because the United States interferes with the
Yeah.
Venezuelan elections. And when people like Brian Edwards Tiekert says that, they normalize that interference. They said that's okay. That's all right. It's all right that the United States has a gun to Venezuela's head by having these unilateral coercive measures, the sanctions on Venezuela. This is the main interference in the elections, and those are the things that are left out of that narrative of this pseudo left. And further, why are they raising this question about Maduro being a dictator? They're doing that to justify the illegality of the U.S. action. Even if he were a dictator, there is no right for the United States to interfere and kidnap him. So it is a actual collusion of people like Brian Edwards Tiekert with the imperialists. And with that said, okay, Bunny, you're up.
Uh, yeah, I wanted to just follow up on Roger's comment real quick. But I have an actual question, but I wanted to point out that uh, one of the rationales here was to get the refineries, the plants, the petrochemical plants up and running again, allegedly because the Venezuelan government had allowed them to deteriorate. That completely ignores the fact that the reason that they were deteriorating was because of sanctions that were imposed by the
Yeah.
United States. Anyways, they could have taken off the sanctions uh, and I have a hunch that the companies would have been in there pumping oil again. My question though is this, and that is prior to the kidnapping, there were a lot of reports or some reports of foreign military assistance, in particular Soviet um, uh, troops assisted by I heard rumors of North Korean troops in there. I guess the Cuban intelligence services. Um, and I was wondering if maybe you could comment on that, where they were, and there was a cargo freighter that left. It was originally called, I believe, the Bella, and then it was reflagged as the Marinera. And the rumor was that maybe it was carrying foreign troops, Soviet troops, or North, who knows what.
So, Richard, if you, excuse me, okay, Bunny, if you could
Yeah,
get
yeah,
to the
I'm sorry.
question.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe if he could, if he would have any observations on that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't, William may have gotten dropped.
No, I'm here.
Um,
I'm here.
okay,
I don't see myself, but I'm here.
you're up there now.
Yeah, you were there.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay, I just want to say first that yes, everything that United States said against Maduro is because we know now, thanks to Trump, they wanted to get all the natural resources of Venezuela without pay and impunity. And we can see it now. So that was everything behind all those accusations against President Maduro, including narco traffic, including that he was sending hundreds of Venezuelan people, crazy Venezuelan people to United States, criminals, including that he is sending terrorists to United States. All those accusations are just, including that he's a dictator or whatever. So are just accusations that are used as excuse to do what they have done. In terms of the presence of Cubans, Russians, and North Koreans, I think that yeah, I think that we know that 32 Cubans were killed defending President Maduro. We know that there are some Russian people there too, and I don't know other people, but you can see Russians in Venezuela very easily in certain part of the city or Caracas. But for me, that's not an issue. The United States have been attacking Venezuela and sending terrorists from all over to attack Venezuelan people. And that's something that I don't feel anything wrong about it to have allies in Venezuela that will help you to defend yourself. I think that the problem is when United States start to send hitmen, head snipers, or terrorists to create chaos in Venezuela. That's a big problem because it doesn't help at all. I can hear you.
Thank you, William. Up next is Judith Osterman, followed by Raj Sahai. Judith, are you there?
I think I just unmuted, did I?
Yeah, you're fine.
Yes, you
Go
did.
ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for coming here. I have a number of questions.
Let's just make it one,
I'll
and then
try.
we'll
Yeah, I'll
go
try.
back to
I'll
you
try.
again.
Right. I'll try. Okay. All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to know what your opinion of Eva Gollinger is, or Gollinger. She was a friend of Hugo Chavez, and she has been saying recently that Delcy Rodriguez and her brother Jorge are opportunists, and that they've been collaborating with the United States for months and talking to Marco Rubio um, uh, secretly for months. And so I don't know. I looked her
So
up,
thank you for
and
that question. We have a lot of people with hands up, so let
all right.
William
Well,
answer that, and then we
let
can
me
come.
just say one background thing is I looked up Eva Gollinger, and she was born in Langley, Virginia. So I don't know if that has anything to do with her credibility or not, but I'm just putting it out there. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we have when we start to organize to defend Venezuela, one day suddenly um, Eva Gollinger show up and she was working with us. I think that, in my opinion, she took advantage of everything. She was able to basically, she's a very opportunistic person. She wrote a book called uh, title with the title. Um, uh, I don't remember Tyrant. What the name? Remember that book?
Tyrants, in a company of tyrants or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
We know her
Confident,
well.
confident of tyrants. So basically, yeah, it's a book where she speak very horrible about Chavez, and she speak very bad about other people that she met, Fidel Castro, that she met thanks to Chavez. Then she, when Chavez died, she said in one article on the New York Times in opinion in the opinion section that Chavez was sexually harassing her, but Chavez was dead already. So and she attacked several times Maduro. She has been attacking Maduro. So now this attack against Delcy Rodriguez. Well, I think that a lot of people are confused with that, but I feel like she's not confused because she has not been. I don't think that she's confused at all. I could see, for example, that Atilio Boron get confused because he says several things. The Argentinian writer, he says several things that were very suspicious, but then he correct himself. Maybe Tarek Ali, I don't know, but other intellectuals. But I don't think that what she's doing is naive.
No, not, no.
Okay.
Just for background, she's probably the most despised person within the movement because of her turning against the revolution. Next up is Raj Sahai.
Yeah, thank you, William. Very learned a lot of things. Um, Clearly, this is an attack on a sovereign country, kidnapping of the president. Um, it's an outlaw thing to do. They are trying to hide it as some action against a drug dealer, not as an attack on Venezuela. So, and your description, William, that was technical achievement. In other words, United States has such powerful technical tools that they could extricate him. 32 Cuban revolutionaries gave their lives in defense of him. I think there are two problems with this description. I'm not saying this is not accurate. It it reinforces the image of United States as all powerful, nobody can stand up, and that is not true. And so therefore, I think there is more to it, and I suspect at some level President Maduro was betrayed. I'm not saying this happened at the higher government level, but at some security establishment level, at some maybe lower down. Because as I understood, he was at a military base, and for the United States to be able to extricate him and his wife, Cilia, Comrade Cilia, without losing any person and then killing all the defenders, this is like a Rambo operation. And I think politically it needs an explanation more than it was that. I mean, there certainly is a class in Venezuela that will betray the country.
Yeah.
That's probably 15% of the people, I'm guessing. And there are lots of people who don't know. So I would like you to address that thing. I think Bolivarian Revolution is genuine. It would not be easy for the United States to control it, but please address my question. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was responding a call through text. The question again.
Okay, so how is it that not a single attacker was killed, no helicopter was downed,
Okay,
and he was at a military base, etc.?
brother, propaganda. I read that there are even some people die, and the mainstream media is not saying people about the American people that die. So they want to look on the international media, internationally, like, nothing happened to us. We went to this country, we kidnapped the president, and in a few minutes, and everything is done. So, but the reality, first of all, the one helicopter is damaged. Secondly, there are a bunch of people injured, and there are several people dead. But we don't know anything about it. We know that, I think that have been able to read about the helicopter, the injured people, more than the people that have been killed. I have not been able to see too many news about those people that have been killed in that attack. So it's just propaganda. They want to look indestructible, like those movies that they made, like Rambo, and create this fantasy that no one can touch them.
William, could you elaborate also on what Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president, said? Because Delcy said in this period she's asking for what she called strategic patience for those of us who support the Bolivarian Revolution, and not to sort of speculate on what went wrong because that creates disunity within the revolution, but to wait for the Venezuelans to reveal what they know rather than for us to question them. So could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, first of all, for those that believe that the Bolivarian Revolution is basically surrendered or something like that, you have to understand that Delcy Rodriguez is the interim president, is not the president. They can they can decide to have her as a president, but no, they decide to have her as an interim president. That means that the president has been kidnapped and is here in Brooklyn, incarcerated illegally from thanks to United States. So that means that they are getting ready to fight in court. So that means that they are not abandoning President Maduro, and they are getting prepared for that fight. So the other thing is that usually when this kind of stuff happens, I will say that not government says everything because they cannot say everything. There are stuff that they have to reserve for their own consumption. And there are stuff that they have been learning in this process that probably we will not know years after. I think that they doesn't have anything they don't have to say everything. What I can see is that I can say is that there are very clear signals coming from Venezuela that they are basically reorganizing themselves and little by little having clear position in certain issues that Donald Trump have been mentioning. She said basically a few days ago that if they want oil, they have to pay because have been like that and will be always like that. And Trump is saying that he will be receiving 30 million, 50 million barrels free. So this is, we need to understand that they have to reorganize and they have to gain time to be able to be ready to the next fight that's coming soon. That is one, defense Venezuela sovereignty and defend President Maduro that is incarcerated in the United States. And that will take maybe, I would say, several months. We need to have it, but they meet even when Trump have a meeting with all these businessmen, all the people from the oil industry, he asked them, I think that just Halliburton, so why you are in Venezuela? He said, oh, by the sanctions, because the sanctions. All that kind of stuff is very good because people are learning. Yeah. So what not because Maduro throw them the dictatorship of the autocratic man throw them from Venezuela. It's because we impose sanctions to Venezuela and they have to go out. So the other contradiction that are coming now from this uh, event that have been created by the Trump administration, and I'm very, very sure that this is going to create more problems from United States because this is a hot potato that every month is going to be more difficult for United States to explain. When you see that they have to recognize that the main cause that they used to incarcerate President Maduro was that he was part of the drug trafficking, and now they have to recognize that the cartel doesn't exist. So this is something very tough for them. They have this is something that for the Trump administration is going to be very difficult in the next coming months. And I feel that Trump has so many potatoes in his hands, and one of them is going to terminate with his administration.
Thank you. Up next is Nino Paglacia, followed by Citizen. So Nino, take it away. And thank you for joining us, Nino.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. Thank you, Roger. Thank you, William. Mi pana, un saludo bolivariano desde
Thank you,
Canadá.
brother.
Let me start. I always like sort of to have a context in my mind of what's going on, and my personal context, and based on my advanced age, I'm going to flaunt that. I'm probably one of the oldest people in this audience, and I have memories. I'm a Venezuelan, by the way, so I have the memories. I lived in Venezuela. When I was becoming an adult in my teenage years, two of my high school students were killed in a protest during the government of Romulo Betancourt. Okay, so this was just a very first memory that I had, and I lived through the whole period of Punto Fijismo, the two governments taking turns and so on. They had an agreement and so on. So the first thing that I want to mention is that because everything, if the Bolivarian Revolution does not survive by any chance, it will, but by any chance, okay, we will have a return to what I know it has been the history of the punto fijismo before Chavez. So I think to me, that context is fundamental, So when I get excited about, the Bolivarian Revolution, Chavismo, I know where I'm coming from and I know what I can see. I know my experience. Therefore, I don't want to repeat that. Okay, so that to me is a no, 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 regardless of details and picking here and picking there and Maduro, a dictator and whatnot. That's picking. That's picking. The context is essential. Okay, there is no perfect revolution. There is no perfect government. There is nothing that we can claim it's 100% solid, firm, and so on. But we always had to aim for the one goal that we want. And here's, I'm going to lead to the goal. Sorry. My understanding is, and maybe then William can comment on this. My understanding is, I know that Maduro goal has always been, because he has mentioned that in every speech that he has given, peace, Bolivarian peace. That has been the Bolivarian Revolution ultimate goal. It's almost like beyond the politics, beyond the economics and so on, but peace. Okay. Now I see Delcy Rodriguez basically addressing the same issue. Bolivarian diplomacy, Bolivarian peace. That's the ultimate goal of the Delcy Rodriguez government, okay? Which is a repeat of what Maduro has been saying. Now, let me just remember the symbol that you've seen it on TV. I have a video of Maduro shackled, being taken, by his captors, and this is the sign that he made. Peace. I can interpret that as also venceremos, but peace, and he's aiming at that from prison. From prison, he's still saying that, okay? And I think that is the subtle message. Remember Chavez when he was apprehended during an uprising? He said,
That's 4 minutes.
The people,
try and wrap
he
up.
said, por ahora. Symbolism is essential. So anyway, sorry. So William, comment on this if you want about what is the ultimate goal that Delcy Rodriguez, the current persisting Bolivarian revolution government, is aiming for.
Yeah, I have to say something very important. A lot of people don't know that Delcy Rodriguez coming from a leftist family, that she is also, her father was killed, and the others governments. He was tortured and died in prison. So, and she always has been involved in the left movement. In fact, she related with Carlos El Chacal. I don't know if you know him. That was a Venezuelan that was fighting for the freedom of the Palestinian people. He's now, I think, more than 30 years in prison in France. Have been more than 30 years in prison. And the one that spoke about him after years, decades, I think that, yeah, he probably had more, 40 years, because Chavez mentioned his name several times and requested his liberation. So we have to put down all those rumors and to really endorse and support Delcy Rodriguez is facing an extremely a critical moment, and is trying to maintain peace in the country and trying to get over of this situation, rescue the Venezuelan president that has been kidnapped in the United States. So her task is extremely difficult, and we have to basically, as Roger Hardy mentioned, just to have a critical patience and we have to be patient and to understand that this is going to be a very critical moment where they have to negotiate with someone that is basically a criminal. It's like they're putting you in a gun in the head, and you have to negotiate with the gun in the head. So that's the situation. A very difficult moment for Venezuelan people, but I feel, again, as I mentioned, I think that people on the street, people are very militant, people are ready, people are very angry, and more than ever, people are right now behind the Bolivarian Revolution because thanks to Trump, people have realized what really the Trump administration and the elite of United States wants from Venezuela, that is natural resources.
Okay, thank you, William. And Citizen is up next, followed by David Paul. Are you there, Citizen? Okay, David, could you come on, please?
Okay.
And good to see you, David.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, William.
Hey.
A comment and a question. In terms of this, the context that Nino referred to, I think really I try to think of the US as an international gangster. They said it really clearly. Even Trump said, well, if they don't comply with us, we'll do so and so. There, and it's just it's not just about taking the oil reserves. It's preventing Venezuela to use its resources to help other countries in the region, to help other movements in the region. It's the regional unity of other countries that Venezuela has had the power to strengthen. That is the biggest obstacle, the biggest fear of empire, is that unity. That's why Venezuelans are always talking about unity, unity. And it's that coming together that Venezuela had the power to do, partly with their moral strength, but also their resources. And they want to destroy that unity to take over Latin America, basically, as a new colony. That's the context I'm always looking at. And just a comment about, I think it's very possible that some lower level military person made a phone call after getting threats of his life and his family by the CIA that helped this intervention. I think it's possible. I'll let the Venezuelans figure that out. But I think everyone in the left and in Venezuela underestimated the technical superiority and possibilities of the U.S. military that helped this happen. That more than any traición, it was that kind of level that we have to understand. And my question is to follow up on one of the first questions. You explained about the elections, but I think if you could just respond a little bit to answer the thing that comes up and is a big obstacle for many people, liberals and progressives that I run into, about, apart from the elections, to counter the idea that it's a dictatorship, how is it best to respond in terms of repression of dissent, either in the press, in the streets, or whatever? And I look at it as it's a context of a warlike situation. And I have to look at restrictions of dissent in that light. But I'd like your response to what's the best way to respond to people. Well, what about the repression of dissent? Because even though the people's freedom of expression here is so limited and narrowed, you can't get on the air, and they're actually trying to create laws to repress dissent here. Regardless of that, how would we address that specific concern of people we talk to here? Repression of dissent in Venezuela.
Yeah. Well, I don't I have been living. I was living in Venezuela, as Nino said, also in the time when we were able to see a real repression to dissent people now. So, and I think that for me, uh, I remember people that basically in those years before the Bolivarian Revolution, for example, were basically taken out and disappeared. So I remember that when people were incarcerated for years without any cause, just because their political actions and their political activism. So it's not the same, and that's why I always mention, no, despite all the huge chaos that the right wing has been organizing for the last 27 years in Venezuela and the street and killing people, kidnapping people, destroying private and public property, despite all that chaos, the constitutional guarantee never has been suspended. So that was something that was a sport in those years before the Bolivarian Revolution. Every president, whenever they have a little crisis, or a little crowd, people protesting, they suspend the constitutional guarantee, and they were able to arrest a bunch of people massively, and disappearing them and killing them, and that's it. So that never happened. That has not happened in the Bolivarian Revolution. I think that we need to put this in context with the history of the country, and we need to see also that Venezuela right now is in war. United States have a war against Venezuela without any declaration. For over 20 years, United States have been trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government, and it's a fact. It's a fact that we can see in the sanctions. It's a fact that we can see in the all the sabotage that they have been organizing against Venezuela. And it's a fact that the president has been kidnapped by United States without any legal reason and violating all the international law. So I think that people always need, to be, that they want to clarify everything when reality, the reality is there. Venezuela is a country that is under attack and has to defend itself from those people that have been attacking and some people that have been in some way organizing themselves in Venezuela to attack the Venezuelan country. And I think that that's the most important thing. Venezuela has the right to defend itself.
Thank you. And I see so many hands
Thank
up.
you.
And I really appreciate all these questions, and I understand the. I mean, every comment and question has been excellent. So thank you so much. But it looks like we may need to run over. And well, William, I know you have an appointment afterward. We're supposed to end in about 15 minutes. Would you have a little bit more time to spend with us now, or do you have to go?
Let me see what time is it. You see that 3 p.m.? It's already,
Yeah, right. So
yeah,
we're supposed to go to
3
3
p.m., no?
p.m. EST.
Okay.
But we're not going to get through everybody by then. Would you have a little bit more time?
More than 15 minutes?
Yeah.
How much? How much? But, well, a little bit, yeah.
Okay. Because just the backstory is that William is very, very busy right now and has another appointment at the end of this thing. But let's push on. And Elazar Friedman is next. Friedman followed by Lucy Rios. So Elazar, good to see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
When I fight against the idea that Maduro is a dictator and that they have interdicted more drugs by the Venezuelan government themselves, they throw back in my face that 60 nations do not recognize the election that brought Maduro to power. I'd also like you to put in chat the link to the National Lawyer Guild's review of that election. And I think someone earlier mentioned about Chabad in Venezuela. I may have misheard. I'm pretty old. I'm 92. But that's an error to bring that up as definitely linked to the United States or imperialism. Chabad fought against the Tsar on the blood libel accusation of Menachem Mendel Beilis. They refused to be split from the Jewish community. They are Orthodox. Many Hasidim carry signs, Free Palestine in Israel. So be cautious. I'm not saying I'm right, but I do like to know how to counter this. 16 nations refused to recognize Maduro's legal existence through that election. Thank you very much, William. It was very informative, both your talk and your dealing with the Q&A. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, let me say that I think that was Che Guevara that used to say that Western civilization is formed by a bunch of shackles waiting to really, to do what they do. In the case of Venezuela, they have not recognized President Maduro because they are more interested in overthrow a government that is defending the sovereignty of the country and defending the natural resources that belong to the Venezuelan people. Course that they would love to get someone in Venezuela as a president that support, for example, Donald Trump's statement saying, "Oh yes, the Venezuelan oil belong to Donald Trump or to United States." Of course, that they would like someone that help them to get all those natural resources for Europe and for United States. Remember that the Western civilization, not only United States, is collapsing economically, and they are desperate to maintain the standard of living and at any cost. They are trying desperately to organize coup d'etats in Africa to those that are fighting for the freedom in Africa. They are desperately trying to get all the natural resources from Nigeria that probably they will do because the Nigeria government is extremely weak. And they are very desperate, especially the Trump administration, to control the entire region and to control all the natural resources. I don't know if I mentioned, but Laura Richardson was visiting all South America for years. And what basically she was doing was updating every single military base in the region and open new military bases in South America just to take over the entire continent as now is happening in the Trump administration. This is not a plan coming from the Trump administration. This is a plan coming from the imperialists that are basically ruling the country and that basically are they have planned for long term in the continent. And this is a very long, very old and long plan that they have been implementing right now, and they have everything ready to do that. That's why we have all these weapons in the Caribbean Sea getting ready to only to attack Venezuela, but also to any other country that in the region. So basically, they attacked again the Venezuelan government, and the non-recognition of the Venezuelan government is because Venezuela is defending itself and is defending its own natural resources for its own people and for, as David Paul said, for the integration of the continent. You know, it's President Chavez the one that basically unify the South America, and defend of the integration, and also is Hugo Chavez the one that basically attacked the free trade agreement and the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He was the one that was leading the movement against the free trade agreement in the region, and that's something that they really hate from Venezuela, because we are talking about millions and billions of dollars they have been losing in corporate and for the corporation that they run.
Thank you. And Laura Wells has put in the National Lawyers Guild report link to that. So up next, if you would, Lucy Rios, followed by Kit. Lucy, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Williams. I was very happy to hear this report that you gave us. I don't think that the main question in Venezuela has anything to do with the internal mechanism or how the people want to be ruled. Because the democracy has nothing to do with the question of independence, the question of complete and absolute determination for the people to have their own self-determination. So if Venezuela had unfair elections or not, it's not up to us. It's up to the people in Venezuela to decide on their own whether Venezuela had fair or unfair elections and decide what to do about it.
Yeah.
Because we on the outside are only interfering in a decision that is strictly theirs. So my position is that if people ask about it, we should say that's not what we're fighting for. In Venezuela is fighting for its own existence as an entity, as a nation. And that is the key, and it's very, very important. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you for
Lucia.
your comment.
Let's go on to Kit. Kit, if you could unmute.
Okay, thank you very much, William, for speaking here today. We would have loved to have had you last week, but you're here and we're grateful for that. I have a few questions, and I'd like to just comment or what your thoughts are on these questions. Let's see. Are Venezuelans in the U.S. being sent back to Venezuela? They have been actually a problem here in the U.S. in terms of spreading the propaganda against Maduro. And how is President Maduro and his wife doing? Any information about their treatment in the U.S.? What can the UN do? I know they have limits to what they can actually accomplish because of the U.S. dominating in the UN, but what can they do? Cuba, Daniel Ortega, other countries are also under attack by the U.S. And what is going on with how the people in Latin America and Central America feel about what is happening right now and how it's going to impact them? And finally, have you heard anything about Russia removing or evacuating their Russian personnel out of Israel? I heard that there's rumors that something could be happening to something's going to happen to Israel as a result. Okay, thank you very much, William.
Thank you, Kit. One thing is that as soon as Delcy Rodriguez became the interim president of Venezuela, the first people that she basically shook hands the same day was the Russian ambassador, the Chinese ambassador, the Iranian ambassador, and the Cuban ambassador. All of them were waiting for her to talk to her. So that's a very strong message from those countries. That, first of all, the recognition that she is the interim president of Venezuela and that she is not a traitor. So we need to take that in consideration. And also, I don't know, I think there were several questions and I'm getting lost. I'm sorry, what was the last question? I think that you have it. Yeah, I didn't write down. Let me write it.
That's okay. The last question is, have you heard anything about Russia removing or
Oh,
evacuating
yeah,
their
yeah, yeah. I'm saying
Israel?
that because basically, yes, the ambassador of Russia and Venezuela have been denying all those rumors that they have been leaving the country. And he have been d- basically in the mainstream media, in the media in Venezuela, denouncing that they are not leaving, that they are part of Venezuela, and they have a lot of common interests, that they are partnership. So, so that's completely rumor. It's not the same situation that's happening in Israel right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. So up next is Peter Fay, and after that, Citizen, please.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for having this discussion. Very interesting. Um, I, I guess one thing I really wanted to do was learn how to analyze what the U.S. strategy is against independent nations. And this is, everyone's saying this is rule breaking and unprecedented and everything, but in my perspective, that's really not true at all. I organized protests against the overthrow of Manuel Noriega in 1989, so that kind of dates where I come from. So to me, this is not all that, not terribly different. Certainly, much has changed, but to me, I'm interested in learning how does the CIA do this kind of stuff, and if we look and compare what happened in Venezuela to other coups and revolutions of various types, there seems to be a pattern, and I'll try and make this short so that I'll get right to the point here. The pattern is, for example, in Syria, buy off the entire military. In Iraq, they bought off many of the generals in Iraq. That helped overthrow that government. Libya, they tried the same thing. Iran, just over the summer, there was lots of money being spread by the Zionists around Iran, and that's currently going on again to raise this kind of protest, etc. So there is a pattern we can discern, and sometimes it works, and sometimes it fails. It's failed in Cuba. They've tried 600 times to kill Fidel. But my understanding is there's much more to it than just betrayals that you can purchase by people's betrayal. Part of the problem in Syria was total destruction of the economy, which is similar to Venezuela, I'm guessing. So what I'm wondering from your perspective, do you see these kind of these strategies? Is there any evidence that they happened? I understand the general that was in charge of the presidential palace was arrested. Can you talk about whether that's true and whether you've seen any kind of attempts by foreign interventionists to try and sway populations other than just spreading USAID money around, but actually buying allegiance from any particular elements within the PSUV. I'd be interested in hearing about that. So thank you.
Well, yes, I understand the general is incarcerated, but I don't think that he have charge. So I think that he is in investigation. Also, for me, I think that already some people here mentioned that it's a combination. It's a combination. Some people they sold out and also the technology that United States use at the moment of the attack. So they have key information of President Maduro, where he was, when, time, all that information, and what kind of weapon the Cuban had. So apparently the Cuban didn't have a very sophisticated weapon. They were very lightly armed. So that's one thing. And also the other thing is that they knew that not the entire security team of the president was with him at that moment. So certain group of the team were not with him because he liberated them. He made them free one day before. So because he said that and the thing is that he said that in an interview. He said that he wanted to give them some free days because they were with him for almost 3 months. So basically, it's a combination of factors. Undoubtedly, that some key people pass information, key information to United States, and undoubtedly they have technologically talking, they had some equipment that they weren't expecting. I think I mentioned to Roger that the mistake, of course, for us now, it's easy to see it. The mistake is that they didn't have people prepare in the old-fashioned way. I'm talking without all those sophisticated equipment and just ready to fight in certain points with weapons to really attack whatever, one of those helicopters. They didn't have, because some of the interviews, one of the soldiers, he said that as soon as they were shooting or they were activating their weapons to fight back, they were bombed. And then they realized that thanks to their weapon, people that were in the helicopter were able to know where they were. So that was the main issue. And they mentioned that. He said they had some kind of equipment that allowed them to know where we were every time that we were ready, getting ready to shoot them.
Okay, let's go on to Citizen. We've lost citizens again. We're having a citizen problem. Okay, Sharon Rose, you're up.
Thank you. I also have a long memory of being part of the anti-war movement, and I think that we need to consider the strategic view of how we're building the anti-war movement this time around. I think that spontaneous demonstrations have happened all over the country. Someone told me it was 1,000 yesterday, and that's a really good thing. But a lot of this discussion today has implications for how we build the anti-war movement and how we talk about the U.S. role in South and Central America in general, and that we don't limit ourselves to simply no war for oil or the immediate slogan, even though, of course, it's very important to call for the immediate release of the kidnapped leadership of Venezuela. But I hope that we can, in the future, focus our discussion on, from a Marxist point of view, the strategic approach to building this anti-war movement this time around.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and then, so we're now a little bit past our time to finish this thing. So William, do you want to respond to this question, or do you need to take off? And we have a few more hands up. What's your pleasure?
Well, I think I have sort of missed call. I think I should be able to move on. Sorry for that, guys.
Okay.
But I want
you know,
to add a comment to the comment of the last comment. I want to say that yes, we cannot be living from a spontaneous process and another one. We see that we have Occupy Wall Street. We see that we have Black Lives Matter. We have always this kind of spontaneous process in the street. I think that we need to build a movement. That's not a movement. That's something spontaneous that and to build a movement requires from us to educate people, to teach everybody, to get together, to be prepared, and to consciously go to the street, not in a spontaneous way, but in an organized way to fight back for our rights.
Thank you so much for coming, William, and telling us that the Bolivarian Revolution is very much alive, that we've seen its success, that there was an attempt to decapitate the leadership but the leadership is continued, and the revolution has continued. The military has been unified with the people, and the struggle continues. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending.
Thank you, brother.
Venceremos.
Venceremos.